Hello, you're welcome back to my channel. We're reviewing chapter 6 of the book The Discipline That Works by Wendy Ologe. We're actually progressing. Chapter 6 says the best way to discipline your child. Is there really a best way to discipline children? Come with me, let's know. I will start with this question. What do we see as success with respect to parenting? Or what do you see as success with respect to parenting? Put down your answers in the comment section. But you raise the child who now has a good job and is doing well, yet has shattered emotions, bad character, low self-esteem, unhealthy mental health, and lacks empathy. Could this mean success to you? To me, success is raising a well-rounded child. A child who can survive the shackles of life in this century. It takes skill to raise such a child. Our parents parented with so many assumptions, and they had their results in quotes, which are us. But do you think you turned out okay? Did we actually turn out okay? For me, I don't think so. So many of us are battling with low self-esteem, poor decision-making skill, and so many other things. Most of us were abused as children by the type of discipline our parents used. Unfortunately, the risk with parenting with assumption in this century is that knowledge is out there. Children have access to internet, and they are moving faster than their parents. So, our luck or assumption may not work with them. The societal ills out there today are crazy. The fact that your parents approach discipline negatively should not be an excuse to do the same. I say often that parenting characteristics are reflective. Have you ever wondered why people parent the same way they were parented? Parenting behaviors are reflective, and the risk of not dealing with the subject of how to discipline right is that we might just continue the cycle. We might just keep producing the type of people our parents produced. People who are not able to stand for themselves. People who keep making poor decisions. So for this to change, we actually need to learn parenting. We actually need effective ways to discipline our children. So how do you determine the best way to discipline your child? Is it by yelling? If you have been following this review, I believe you will know that this is a no-no, because you will make your child an emotional wreck. Is it verbal correction, using consequences, and all the tools we share in chapter 5? It is yours to make the decision. I would like to say that there isn't a single right way to discipline kids. But there are plenty of ways to raise a happy child who turns into a responsible adult. Therefore, you will need to create a disciplinary strategy. There are lots of different opinions about which discipline approach is more effective or what impact certain types of discipline will have on kids. So, it's important to do our homework so you can make informed choices about how to raise your children. Ultimately, your quest to find the best discipline practices should be about finding the discipline technique that will work best for your family and each of your child. Here are 7 things to consider when deciding which discipline strategies to use with your children. The first thing to consider is that effective discipline starts with understanding where your child falls on the developmental spectrum guide. Knowing where your child falls at the developmental spectrum guide is one thing, and understanding what happens with them during that period is another thing. For instance, at 18 months old, your child is building vocabulary and can follow simple instructions, but he can't effectively communicate his needs or understand lengthy reprimands. At this age, he's curious, he's fearless, he can dare anything, impulsive, mobile, and clueless about the consequences of his actions. He may bite or hit to register his displeasure or to get your attention. Consequences of misbehavior must be immediate at this stage. If you wait even 10 minutes to react, he won't remember what he did wrong or tie his action to the consequence. At age 2, your child is using her developing motor skills to test limits. He will do that by running, jumping, throwing, and climbing. He is everywhere. Speaking a few words at a time. He becomes frustrated when he can't get his point across, and she's prone to tantrums. So at this age, children are always throwing tantrums because they are not able to get their point across to you. She's also self-centered and doesn't like to share. It's very typical of a 2-year-old not to want to share his things. So at this point, you don't need to force him or her to share his toys. You need to let her understand the need to share his or her toys and be patient with her while teaching. At this age, consequence must be swift, as a 2-year-old is unable to grasp time. But since she still lacks impulse control, give her another chance soon after the incidents. At age 3, your child is now a chatterbox. He's using language to argue his point of view. Since he loves to be with other children and has boundless energy, he may have a tough time playing quietly at home. So at that time, when you want to tell your child sit indoor, no, he already possesses a lot of energy. He wants to move around, he wants to run, he wants to jump. So locking the child inside can give him much pressure. So you need to look for places where he will have close social contact and let him release that energy. At this age, your child needs affection just as they need food. So you don't need to chase him away because you have another child. He still loves your attention more. It's at this age that he needs affection. So don't chase him out. Most times we observe that most parents, most mothers at this stage, they still have another baby. So it becomes a difficult time for these children. Understands what is right and wrong, cause and effect, and can keep information for longer hours. Consequences can be delayed for maximum impact, and explanations can be more detailed. For example, if he litters his room with his toys, remind of the consequence and explain what happens if he does it again. Like, you won't have to play with them again. If he doesn't pick up the toys and he asks to play with them later, say something like, remember when daddy told you to pack your toys and you didn't? Well, daddy said the consequence is no play with your toys today. The next thing we should consider while determining the discipline to use for our child is your child's temperament, his abilities, weaknesses, and personalities. This should be taken into consideration. Children come into this world with some natural abilities, weaknesses, and personality. So what works well for one child may not work for another. You can't discipline child A the same way you discipline child B. A firm redirection or verbal correction might be an effective discipline strategy for your sensitive child. But your strong-willed child, this is those children we normally term as stubborn, might need a loss of her privileges. Some children are also more motivated by words than others. So take time to really think about what discipline will work best with each child. Therefore, you need to become a student of your child. I'm putting up a course that will help us understand who our children is. So that will be coming up next month. Please, when that course comes, make sure you follow through. It will help you a lot. Then the next thing to consider is to take your own temperament into account. That's the parent. This will help you examine the fit between your temperament and that of your child. For instance, a quiet, phlegmatic, or melancholic parent may find it easy to handle a shy child who just likes to read and play with blocks. However, if you, a quiet parent, has a loud, hyperactive child, you might become often overwhelmed by his energy level. This can mean that you cannot be patient for some behaviors your child will put up. Or It might also mean you may become too strict about something that you don't need to. You must become aware of your temperament. This will help you ensure that you are parenting in a way that teaches your children life skills needed to become responsible adults. This will also help you work on your emotions so you can become emotionally intelligent. Then the next thing we also put into consideration is that you should understand your child's learning style. Children learn differently. That is why, as parents, you can teach your children the same thing. One will understand why the other will not. Many parents don't understand that this has a lot of impact on how you discipline your child. That's the learning style of a child has a lot of impact on how you discipline the child. Remember, we already established that discipline is teaching. If you don't understand how your child learns, discipline might become a struggle. So, you need to become a student of your child. That is, you need to learn about your child, understand them before you can teach or discipline them. This will help you deal with issues from the standpoint of knowledge and not just what people are doing or what our parents did. For instance, a visual child will require to see what you are saying. That's a child who is a visual learner will require to see what you're saying, maybe in pictures or maybe written out. While a kinesthetic learner will tune off on your long verbal correction. A kinesthetic learner is the child that is everywhere. He wants to play. He learns through play. So if you keep giving this child a very long instruction, it will be hard for the child to understand it. Presently, according to research and studies, there are 7 different learning styles. We have the visual or spatial learners. These people prefer learning using pictures, images, and spatial understanding. These are people, as you're talking, they want to visualize what you're saying. And once they are able to visualize it, that makes sense to them. And they are able to carry out that instruction. Then we have those that learn through oral or auditory musical learners. This set of learners, they prefer learning with sound and music. There are those that understand better with soft music. Then the verbal or linguistic learners. This set of people prefer using words, both in speech and in writing. Then physical or kinesthetic learners. They prefer using their bodies, hands, and sense of touch. So that child that you keep saying you can't stay quiet, the child may be a kinesthetic learner. They are always everywhere. They want anything they see, they want to touch. That is how they learn. Then logical or mathematical learners, they prefer using logic, reasoning, and systems. The social or interpersonal learners. This set of people prefer to learn in groups or with other people, while the solitary or intrapersonal learners prefer to work alone and use self-study. Your child will most likely not possess one style exclusively. That's all these 7 whole learners. That doesn't mean your child will just be one specifically. They may possess some percentages from all of these other learning styles. But the thing is that one must be dominant. For instance, a child who is visual may also be a very social and verbal learner, but will most likely learn difficult topics using his primary skills. That's the more dominant one. Understanding how your child learns is one of the most important tasks a parent must put into consideration in creating a disciplinary strategy that must work. It will also help you understand how to provide opportunities for learning through the use of their identified learning preferences. Many times, parents will use their own preferred learning style as their main mode of parenting or teaching. And if their child does not share those same learning styles, then parenting can become very difficult and frustrating. What do I mean here? If you have a child that is a visual learner, he likes to use pictures, he likes to understand through images. And every day you keep dishing out instructions because you as the parent, you learn using words. That's you're a verbal learner. So when you're teaching your child with your own mode of learning, with your own style of learning, the child may not get it. and this can make it very difficult and frustrating for parents. This is also why some teachers are better than the others, depending if the teacher is using a child's preferred learning style, or why some children like a certain subject over another. The rule is how your child learns should determine how they are taught. Another thing you should also put into consideration while choosing the disciplinary strategy for your child is that you should identify your parenting style. Research has identified 4 main types of parenting styles. We have the authoritative parent, authoritarian parent, permissive parent, and uninvolved parents. The authoritative parents are this type of parents that are nurturing. They are affectionate to their children. They use non-punitive measures. They discipline through guidance and also open communication. They have firm and consistent control over their children. They monitor and impart clear standards for their children's conduct. They give priority to their child's needs and ability and not what they want. They imply age-appropriate maturity demands. They encourage children to be independent by equipping them with the right skill. They are attentive to their children. They are forgiving. They encourage autonomy. They are attentive to their children and also forgiving. Then the authoritarian parent. These are the strict parents. You need to do it my own way or no other way. They are inflexible. They have high expectations for their children. They also want their children to be obedient. Anything I say, do it that way. You will not even want to hear from the child's perspective. They are firm in control practices. That as they want it, it must be my own way. They expect strict, unquestionable obedience to parental authority. They are not ready to accept individuality of a child. They don't know that every child is different. Disobedience is dealt by forceful and punitive discipline. You must die today for doing this. You disobeyed my order, then they want to kill the child. They also have relative neglect of child's needs. They don't want to put the child's need into consideration. There is little communication between parent and child. Then highly directive behaviors. Then the permissive parent. The permissive parent is nurturing, is affectionate, few or inconsistent boundaries. He has only few boundaries. He will want to take the role of a friend rather than a parent. Most times he wants to allow the child to do anything he or she wants. There is frequent expression of want and affection. There is low enforcement of rules and authority. They allow the child to make their own decision, which is very bad. This will lead to children being spoilt. Then there is also minimal discipline. Then the uninvolved parent. This parent is emotionally detached, self-absorbed. He has inconsistent or no boundaries at all. These are the type of parents that say that they don't have time. There is slight interaction with their children. He neglects the child. He has an inattentive behavior. These uninvolved parents, most times we see it in cases with the male parents. So with these styles, identify which style you are naturally drawn to. Then evaluate the pros and cons of your parenting style and start to determine if there are any changes you want to make to your approach to discipline. Research shows that children raised by authoritative parents fare best physically and emotionally. So consider what steps you might take to adopt a more authoritative style. Then the next thing you also put into consideration is to educate yourself on the 5 types of discipline. There are basically 5 types of discipline. We have the positive discipline, the gentle discipline, boundary-based discipline, behavior modification, and emotions coaching. You can research more on these types of discipline. So identify which discipline strategies you use and think about which one are most effective with your child. A combination of several types of discipline may be most effective in managing your child's behavior. So you can also even use the 5 of them. In the chapter we treated previously, the tools are listed there. Most of those tools are embedded in these 5 types of discipline. Lastly, you need to experiment with these various discipline strategies. Your child's discipline needs will change several times as he grows, depending on his maturity level and life circumstances. A discipline strategy that works now may not work next year. This is what I call responsibility shift. Do you recognize when you need to do what? That's why it's important to have a toolbox filled with discipline tools, so you are always ready with an alternative strategy. So those 10 tools we listed in chapter 5, the tools of the discipline that works, let us have it handy. Because if one does not work, you try the other one until you get the one that suits your child at that particular time. In conclusion, you should keep teaching your child new skills so he can learn to manage his behavior better. These skills could be decision-making skills. These skills could be learning to take toys, learning to clean up after a mess, effective communication skills. So when these children, when they are able to learn these new skills, it will be easier for them to manage their behaviors. We have come to the end of this review. I believe you got value for your time. This is going to be the last chapter we'll be treating. The other remaining 2 chapters are more of summary of what we have done. So we will not do that. If you have questions, you can drop it in our WhatsApp group. It will be attended to in that group. And finally, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to our channel. Also turn on your notification bell and make sure you share to your friends and loved ones so that together we can make our world a better place to live. Thank you.